always find a way to talk crap.
We could talk about that fellow that screwed his boat up on the Texas
God
City dike.
almighty.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was...
Is
I
that
know
that
you
one
guys
with
know
that
what I was talking about.
with that blown up cover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw. I didn't read it. What did he do?
Well, the story was way too long for you to read.
Hang on.
I mean, it went beyond 4 sentences. I know you weren't going to read it.
Oh,
I like Carrie in the background. She's like the studio audience.
Holy shit, that is a long story.
So basically, he didn't see a barge coming. Well, there wasn't a barge coming when he started.
Container ship.
A container ship, yeah, when he was trying to load his boat, and then all of a sudden he turned around and there it is, sucking out all the water.
I have used that ramp many, many times, and it is spooky as hell when that happens.
I don't even want to mess with that.
I mean, it's spooky. All the water goes away. Just like, on the intercoastal or anywhere when the barge comes by, how it sucks it out.
Yeah.
10 times that.
Damn.
So was he on the trailer or tied to the dock or what?
He was tied to the dock, between the docks, and all the water got sucked out, and his motor went down in the mud and died. And got his boat sideways underneath the 2 docks, and the water came back and crushed it under the docks.
That's a lot easier than reading it. Thank you, man.
I knew you weren't going to make it all the way through, so I figured I'd give you the little short version.
I was doing the Evelyn Woods speed reading.
Yeah. Hello, Caleb. Caleb.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey,
what's up, man?
Yeah. I was hoping you wouldn't be back in time by the time we started the show, so I could say Captain Scott's here, Captain Dean's here, and Caleb's chair.
Well, I was hoping my wife hadn't used all the dang toilet paper, so we can all just hope all we want.
Did I mention we're live?
Yeah, well, that's fine. This is real life. This is real life stuff, man.
All right, save that clip. Marked 2 minutes and 20 seconds. That should be easy enough to cut up. Yeah, I think we're good. We're going to talk a little crap, have a little fun. All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? This is the Bite Me Podcast. John Lopez here. Welcome into another episode of the Bite Me Podcast. Captain Dean Thomas with an all-new renovated office. Man, he's just showing us all up. I got one measly fish behind my head. He's got 4 badass ones up there. Captain Scott, we're sporting that OG sauce hat, which is always good. And for a while there, we were talking with Caleb McCumber's chair. I'll post a clip of exactly why the chair was there and where exactly he was sitting, but you can kind of figure it out. Captain Caleb McCumber is joining us as well. Get the particulars out of the way. Got a big show for you today. And that is, obviously, we want you guys to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Join the Facebook group page, pushing 10,000. We're still going to do something when we get to 10,000 on the group page at 9,800 and change. And you can listen live as we record this podcast every Tuesday about 3:30 right here on YouTube. How's everybody doing today? Caleb, I'm going to start with you. You look a little thinner.
I'm fantastic, man. I found myself in a crappy situation, but I made myself out of it, so we're good.
Okay. And Captain Dean, I know you've been on the water a lot. I've been on the water with you recently, but you got a new studio set up there. You got a little sailfish action. What is that other one? You got a redfish. You got a trout. What's the other one?
Marlin.
Oh, of course, it's a marlin. That's my dream. Hey, man, we're almost headed to Costa Rica here in mid-April. Excited about that.
You got your chance coming up, man.
I got my chance. We'll see what's going on. And Captain Scott, of course, one of the originals here on the Bite Me Podcast. Scott, let's get into this. We got a lot of topics today, and we're going to hit them all. We have a boat ramp confessional that was an interesting one, and actually happened to one of our friends. Jason Law had a buddy that. Man, the door is not supposed to close that way. That's the tease on that one. But we'll let you know. Scott, what's happening, man?
Oh, not a lot. Had to deal with a little cold front there. Got a little chilly.
Yeah. This morning was 47 here.
And it's still raining out at my house too. Man, we got this weird sprinkly rain. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Hoping this is the last of the last of it.
Oh, we're going to have one in April. There's always one in April. And I'm always saying, oh, I think that's it. And then, of course, it kicks us in the butt again with some wind and rain and cold.
Well, I figured with rodeo being over with, that's usually a sign that the weather's better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a good sign.
We had
rodeo always catches hell.
Yeah.
We had an entire neighborhood that there were dead doves everywhere because the storm killed all the birds in the neighborhood Friday night.
What?
Yeah, y'all had a pretty good one there.
It was there was 1 inch hail knee deep in places in people's yards.
So they're getting peppered.
The cars are beat flat. The houses are beat flat. I've never seen anything like it south of Dallas, and I've been in the roofing industry for 23 years now. It's wild, but I've never seen yards full of dead birds because the birds couldn't even escape it in time. It's crazy. It was 1 mile away from me. I'm over here. I would love to have new siding and windows.
Yeah. While we're at it, and you mentioned you've been in the roofing business, if anybody needs you, where can they get you?
Oh man, hit me up on Facebook Messenger, Caleb McCumber on Facebook, or go to my website, has my cell phone number on it, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, let's get into it here.
Hey, did you go ahead.
Did
you go check on those birds and make sure they were real birds? And not drones.
I
mean, this is a perfect opportunity to go check them out.
The government has lost at least 200 spies in the Needville neighborhood.
You should have opened one up. Wait a minute, that's a battery.
I kicked a couple of them, see if they were still cookable.
They were on ice.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, that's the wild thing is there were still like 8-inch deep, maybe like 4-foot round piles of hail in people's yards at 5 o'clock the next day, and it was 80 degrees all day. If that tells you how much hail it was, it is absolutely nuts.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this stuff with the podcast topics. A lot of them from our listeners, of course. And I'm going to start with Dean and Caleb here. Dean, I'm going to start with you on this one because I think it's something that you probably exercise a lot, unless I'm wrong on that. But one of the questions we got from our listeners talking about the spring, obviously grass can settle down as opposed to being real long in the summertime in your neck of the woods. And then I'm gonna get to Caleb because it's a different scenario on that oyster reefs and oyster beds all over the Middle Coast, and particularly Matagorda and East Matagorda where he is. But the question came up, Dean, is there a rule of thumb, or do you change like the size of the bait? And by the way, we're going to get into hatches, which I know Scott's going to have a lot of info on that. Somebody was asking about the hatches and cycles, which might tie in with this. But is there a rule of thumb, Dean, on bait size in the spring and jig head weight in the spring? And it sounded like he was having a bad day and was wondering and changing jig head weights. I'm not exactly sure where he was fishing, but bait size and jig head weights in the springtime.
No, where we're at, I mean, the size always stays the same, but you can get away with an exposed hook on a jig head, a heavier jig head. You can hit the bottom, you can bounce it through the grass, and there's a lot less snags. As we get closer to summer and the grass starts growing, it's weedless. I mean, you have to be weedless, or as soon as it hits the water, it's snagged. And the seagrass here, I mean, it's just like the grass in your lawn in the wintertime. It goes down to stubble. It's like dead. And I mean, it appears to be dead, but as soon as the sun gets right, gets a little water on it, I mean, and then you start to mowing season again. The flats are the same way. I mean, it starts putting green sprouts. So the only thing that we really change is you can get away with an exposed hook, which is going to get you more hook sets. The weedless, you'll miss a few strikes, but if you don't have the hook, you're not going to get the hit. But the size stays the same. It really doesn't change. I mean, we stick with the same stuff. It's just a different way to rig it.
Yeah. And Caleb, go ahead.
It's not, to me, it's not as much of a seasonal difference as it is if I'm wanting to present the lure slower or keep it in a certain column, then I'll go down to the 1/32, 1/16, where I can flutter a plastic around. Primarily most of the time I'm throwing an 1/8 just because whenever I'm waiting over grass, I'm usually working my lure pretty quick. Just my nature of fishing, and I can get away with keeping an eighth up high. And I typically throw jig heads mostly drifting, and I'm always going to throw in an eighth, if not a quarter, even if it's windy. But like Dean said, the weedless stuff down there where he's at, where the grass is, you almost have to go with it if you want to do anything but a fast, straight retrieve. Up here on the middle coast, you can get away with whatever it takes for the presentation, but I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the seasons as they come along.
Yeah, but Caleb, let me ask you this, because this was I just remembered he'd add this about the springtime, looking for bigger fish, bigger trout, maybe a little more spread out. Does that tempt you to go with bigger bait? I know you're going to throw a corky if you're waiting, but just bigger baits in general. Otherwise,
not so much. I'll go to a bigger bait whenever I'm wanting it slow and moving around. But the springtime, you're getting a lot more smaller bait out there. The water's warming up, the bait's quicker. Last week, every fish we caught was extra strong because that water's warming up and they're starting to eat better. So not necessarily a bigger plastic, no. But like you said, I'm still gonna kind of gravitate towards top waters and corkies and that kind of stuff. But when I'm throwing a plastic, it's typically some, the K Wiggler, Balltail Junior, the Mirror Little John, stuff like that is primarily what I'm using. But when the bite's slow, then I'll go to the bigger plastics, because I'll like the K Wiggler Willowtail. You can rig it up to where it actually hop on bottom and sit there, but then the plastic itself floats up a little bit and waves around. So
yeah,
that's where I'm going to use it, is dropping it in sand spots and letting it flop in the water like that.
And Scott, I said I wasn't going to go to you, but I think you have good insight on this part. It also depends on where you are fishing, because you fished all over, from Sabine all the way down to the tip of the Texas coast, on the lower coast. Caleb reminded me of this. He throws an eighth and a quarter. When I was in Sabine, I was throwing a quarter a lot because it's deeper water, especially when I was drifting, get it down there, try to pop it in there. Then I got to the mid coast, and I was there for about 4 or 5 years, and I was throwing an eighth of an ounce. Now I'm down south, and because I'm sliding it over the grass and stuff, I'm throwing a 1/16 of an ounce oftentimes. So it really does matter, like, where you are, right, Scott?
That's why that jig head aisle is full.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why there's so many different kinds. There's weedless, there's the straight open hooks, and then there's all kind of sizes, man. I've thrown as big as 5/8 ounce.
Yeah.
My buddy Jason came from the bass world, and where I would be throwing a 1/16 or 1/8 ounce in Galveston up in the marsh, he's still throwing a 1/2 ounce. I mean, he's throwing big, heavy jigs, and his idea was he liked to be able to put it where he wanted it, and he could cast it better. It all depends on how you like to fish, and what the situation is. You can't get away with that in oysters and grass.
Exactly.
You can't be throwing anything heavy that's just going to dive down. The reason I like the weedless ones is with the belly weight is they ride down flat, and even a customer who is not very good can throw it on an oyster reef and get it back without hanging up with the swim bait style hook.
Dean, this is another thing I was just thinking of. Is there a moment in time, or is it just you see the grass when you start going a little more weedless?
There's not a real specific moment. It starts growing, and the thing that coincides with the growth of the grass is the boat traffic as well. So the boats chop it up, and we get a lot of floating grass that becomes an issue. So
about the 5th time he has to pull grass off his hook, that's when he changes.
Yeah, exactly.
and there's days that the boat is just covered with grass, with guys bringing it in and picking it off the lures and throwing it down, shaking it off. I mean, you can tell. But as the boat
that's rude.
And a lot of times they're like, man, sorry, that's like, ain't no big deal, man. That boat gets trashed. It gets washed just as easy. But the boat what happens, especially through April and May, I mean, in the beginning of May, when the wind changes directions, you have wind change. So the boats chop up the grass, the wind blows it against the shoreline, and it's sitting there. Then the wind changes directions and it dislodges all that grass, and you get big mats floating around. and it can really be it can be a mess some days. So I mean, and as we get from now on, I mean, stuff is going to turn to strictly weedless if you want to float in the shallowest, grassiest areas. But you know, you got to deal with it. That's where the fish live. That's where they're feeding. The topwater bite has really come around for me though the last couple of days. It was slow. I mean, we had that conversation over the weekend about how my week was, and my hookup to cast ratio went way down.
Oh boy, you're telling me.
After,
by the way, we didn't ask Caleb about that. Oh no, we did ask you about that. We didn't do the whole questions of
yeah. We gotta give Caleb a chance. But yeah, so it couldn't have been more appropriate for the conversation that we had last week on the hookup, because we had 2 days where we couldn't buy a fish. It was horrible out there, and then all of a sudden it turned around, it got better, and then yesterday, day before and yesterday, man, I mean, the reds are just getting aggressive, just destroying topwater. So that's the best way to avoid the grass.
Yeah, Caleb, go ahead.
I had to just I caught some big trout last week, and because I had to vacate the area I started at because the reds were just destroying my topwater, which was fun, but less fun than fighting them on a 7-foot medium heavy. After about the 10th one on that little light wading rod, I've had enough of these guys.
And Caleb, you were killing us last week, man. I'm out there.
Oh boy, was he?
Couldn't find a fish, and you're sending pictures of speckled trout as big as your leg, and I was like, "This dude," I was like, "You got to be kidding me, man!"
And they were different fish, right, Caleb?
Yeah, it was just excellence in motion, really. If I had to sum it up,
he had a really good guide.
Yeah,
great guide.
Yeah, I mean, when the guy on your left is Pat Gardner and the guy on your right's Wayne Davis, I mean, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I outfished Pat, but you know, it didn't hurt anything to have him there.
I'm sure.
The second morning, Pat said, "You go stand on that end. I'm gonna stand on this end, so I don't have to listen to your crap all day." and then we were getting out of the boat, and Pat looks at me and goes, he says, "You know what? Never mind. Come stand right beside me. I want you to see the show."
Oh, and update.
Pat caught some big fish, man. It was a good weekend. A lot of people have mentioned it, and I'm like, man, zip codes help. That's pretty important right now.
Well, zip codes definitely help.
Perry Bauman says, "Do you downsize when you're sight casting reds? I have never casted a plastic over 4 inches at a red ever. If my lure gets bigger, it's because I've got a spinnerbait on it. I'm typically throwing a 3-inch to 4-inch, and I'm gonna make a short on it eventually. But people talk about throwing weedless sight casting. The best thing to throw weedless sight casting is throw that weedless hook in the trash and make better casts. And it sounds big headed, because I asked this question too whenever I got into the game, and the guy that's how he answered it to me. He just said, because I was asking him, "Do you use this weedless hook, 4-aught, 5-aught?" And it was a very long thought out question, and the answer was, "Throw jig heads, make better cast." And I thought he was being a jerk, but then I learned after a while he's not wrong, because like Dean said, your hookup ratio goes up a lot better with those jig heads. When you're wading with weedless, you're defenseless, man, because you're kind of blind casting. You can throw into a sand pocket, but you're going to come out of that sand pocket. But when you're up on that tower sight casting, you can see the holes and make it happen. So that's the overall big question to Perry there, or big answer to Perry there.
And sight casting from up high, it's easier to avoid the grass. You're jigging it up opposed to sideways. So there's a little angle advantage there.
Right.
I'm sensing a lot of trash talk here, and I love the days when we do the podcast and I can start scratching out some topics, because we're getting more organic here. You three have fished with each other a lot. Which one of you is the most accurate caster?
Me.
Caleb?
Dean's pretty accurate, but I mean, I'm just going to throw out a little ratio of 10-1.
Scott?
I can hold my own against anybody.
Oh, I knew it. Me, and me. What was the right answer?
Let's get a fly rod and see how Caleb does.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how well does Michael Jordan play football? I mean, it's a moot point.
He plays basketball.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
this man's trying to put me in a different sport. And I'm just going to throw it out there that I don't have to compensate by having a bunch of big mounted fish behind me. I can just go off of my own.
I like that.
My own,
what Dean was saying.
My own confidence in myself. I'm not compensating for anything.
I will say this, and I'm not going to pretend to be as accurate as you three guys, but we were fishing Saturday morning. And Dean goes, "All right, put it right on the edge of that rock pile right there." Boom, right on the edge. Come on now.
Hey man, I might have a couple of fish on the wall, but I ain't got no big checks hanging on mine either.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm looking behind me and I see a roll of paper towels I should have taken with me earlier. I'll tell you.
Hey, you should have tore a corner off of that check and took it with you.
That's it. I'll tell you a quick accuracy story. Me and Scott are in Louisiana fishing. And I have this little underarm flip I do, especially if I'm standing on anything elevated, which I was on the front of this pole platform.
Yeah, I've seen you do it.
And that's how I cast. I don't cast overhand unless I'm waiting. And man, it was a pretty long cast, and I flipped this topwater, and it was the most beautiful. Like when it landed, the rear hook just brushed the grass on the bank there, and I kind of turned and I looked at Scott like, man, did you see that? And I'm working that lure back, and I turn back around, and whenever I look at the water, there is a redfish mouth the size of a basketball coming at this topwater. I can see what this fish had for breakfast yesterday, and it scared the dog crap out of me. I about fell off the tower, and I set the hook and immediately broke my rod. But damn, is an accurate cast
in 3 places.
So when you're on the platform and you're flipping it from the bottom, isn't that the same as standing on the floor and throwing over?
Well, I flip from the bottom when I stand on the floor too, though, most of the time, because I'm used to having customers beside me or behind me and screwing around, and I don't want to be the guy that hooks them behind me. So I've learned I stand on the nose of the boat where the water's right there by my right ankle, and I flip underneath like that most of the time. When I wasn't flipping underneath with you guys, with you and Jimmy, because we had so much stinking room, and I was trying to wing it as far as I could.
Man, I had 2 guys the other day, huge fans of the podcast on the boat, both on the front. One of them reared back with all of his might, and boom, two hooks right in the collar of his shirt.
You know, there
did not get his neck, but man, he laid him into the. It was so close.
Y'all mentioned a time or two about so and so went fishing with y'all and said I was mean to him, but that's not true. I just treat you like one of my friends while we're out there. But there was one time that I looked at dude and said, "What in the hell are you doing?" And he was behind me on my boat, and he rears back and sticks me in the back with both hooks of a skitter walk, and cast hard enough to break my rod at the same time with it attached to my back. They're like, "What do we do? What do we do?" And I grabbed some pliers and kind of like trying to scratch your own back, and I found it and jerked that hook out of my back. But I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And I meant it. I meant every syllable of it. Boy, I saw red. That shit hurt.
The best part about fishing with Caleb is the crap that he gives you. Like that's the
part
best
of the package, man.
Yeah, that's absolutely the best part.
Come sit beside me and watch kids play baseball. It's no different.
I bet you that is irritating.
I did not give him any crap when he broke his rod on my boat 3 places.
No, he didn't.
I've pretty much forgotten about it.
He hasn't done it for 4 years.
I can tell you just about forgot. All right, which one of you guys can cast the furthest?
Me.
Caleb?
I feel like we're walking into a trap because some of them popping course you throw are dang heavy.
Yeah.
But I will say that Scott, Steen can say all he wants, but I have watched Scott cast the end of his spool, and Scott has watched me cast the end of my spool.
Yeah, but you didn't have much line on it.
Yeah, that's
they were plumb full, weren't they, Scott?
How much line you have? I did rear back. I reared back on my boat one day and broke the rod I was casting, and a rod in the holder broke 2 in one swing.
Nice.
Yeah, that was
double play.
That's a
I got all of mine with an oak tree during the World Series.
Yeah,
we need to settle it. Maybe Friday. Friday. We need to settle this because we're taking out the Livingstons from the feeding frenzy. They bid highest on a trip with all 4 of us. I see a little YouTube video coming. Accuracy and distance. The pressure's on, boys. No more.
I'm going to Anglers Anonymous, getting a real super tune. I'm gonna get the biggest corky they got. Put some extra weights on it.
I'm gonna take half the line off my reel so I can throw it down to the spool.
Oh no, Scott. We both had full spools, did we not, Scott?
Yep.
No. We had a 56 mile an hour wind behind us.
It was during Hurricane Harvey. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. It was during Hurricane Harvey.
No, it was Hurricane Rojo.
Yeah, it was Hurricane Caleb and Scott entered a tournament. Scott came out of retirement for a tournament hurricane.
Way back in the day when Hurricane Daniel hit the Gulf Coast, I did that with my kids, just showing off. And it was real windy, but it wasn't raining. So I said, watch how far I'm going to cast this. And I went out to the edge of the beach and I just popped it right off. I don't know how much line I had, but it was, I lost everything. I was like, oh, well.
I was throwing croaker one time and I put the little dude on the hook, and I'm not overly practiced in this, and I'm used to slinging lures, and back in my back cast, when I went to go forward, that little sucker popped off the hook, and I cast every bit of line off of my spool, but not out of my reel. Travis Thompson looked at me and said, "You just step on a cat over there?" I'm like, man, I don't know what happened.
By the way, our guy Justin is listening right now live with us, and he said, "This is going to be a shit show." yeah. Well, you paid for it. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay. I will say though, Justin and your lovely wife, I'm cooking your brisket right now, man. I'm going to follow through on this promise. I've had it going for about 8 hours. Got about 8 more to go. It's going to be sweet. I don't know if you want to share, but you don't have to. We don't want you to take it home and enjoy that brisket.
I'm bringing a loaf of white bread with me, so
you're going to cut a big chunk. Well, they're going to get it home and they're going to say, "Wait a minute, it was bigger. It was bigger when we got it."
I'm bringing the OG sauce.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
Oh yeah,
Scott, you got the pickles and the onions.
He gonna go home.
Justin and his wife are going to have enough for half a sandwich.
I'll let them. They can keep
smells
the tip of it.
You better make 2 briskets.
Yeah, now we think about it.
Too late now. It's on there. All right, so
it's Tuesday. I mean, how long does it take you?
We'll do it maybe then.
That's what I'm saying. Why would they want a brisket that's been sitting for 2 days, dude?
I'm cooking it about. Okay, hold on. Listen up. I'm going to be getting down there Thursday evening. So tomorrow's Wednesday, and I didn't want to have to cook it and rush it because you realize everything you guys, all the crap y'all are talking about fishing, I can do with cooking.
Okay, so I'm just going to say
a good 17 hours.
Every Sunday at 6 o'clock, I watch a dude win a world championship, and he cooks his brisket in 6 hours.
So who can throw a brisket the farthest?
Oh no, you can go. We'll put it on a hook. He's gonna go, "Hey, that's my brisket."
Hey, little side story here. Little side story here. We were filming for the new project last week, and I took a kid from the neighborhood with me. He'd been big into all of our YouTube stuff and everything. So the second day was a little bit slow. We were catching a fish every 30 minutes or so. He looks over and he says, "Man, this is nothing like YouTube."
All right. I guess we got to get back to some fishing topics here. Because,
you sure?
Yeah, you can go hot and fast, which is about 6 hours, 5-6 hours. You can go real low and real slow, which is about 21. And I like to get in that sweet spot and do it about probably about 16, 17 hours. But anywho, that's all I'm going to say about that. All right.
Well, it'll be fresh when we eat it, Dean.
Do I?
It'll be fresh when we eat it.
I'm gonna start one on Wednesday. It'll still be warm when they get here.
Yeah.
It's gonna be perfect.
Enjoy your old used brisket, Justin.
All right. I'm going to skip ahead. I know you guys are always, reading the rundown very, very closely, but I'm going to skip ahead to Scott here, starting us off, because we were talking about the size of bait and the jig head weight. Well, that ties directly, Scott, with a question that I got about bait hatches and cycles. And the gist of the question was, hey, you guys are always talking about matching the hatch. You're talking about the bait has, it has started, smaller bait, bigger bait. But he wants to know, Scott, when does this happen? Like what are the cycles that we can kind of keep an eye on? I know you're going to be looking at bait, but when are the cycles here? What in general are some of the bait hatches and cycles, if you can explain that?
It's different all up and down the coast, depending on where you're at, of course. But springtime, you're going to have smaller bait typically. You got little bitty shrimp where I'm at right now. They're tiny. I mean, little 1/2-inch shrimp jumping everywhere. The mullet goes down a shoreline, looks like rain with the little shrimp jumping. The upper coast, kind of about the same, maybe a couple weeks later, but those shrimp will typically mature out around March, or I mean May, sometime about middle of May around here, and we'll get some good tailing action. So you just kind of got to watch every time you go out, take a look around, keep an eye on it. Rain minnows, they'll show up in mass here before too long. If they haven't already, I haven't gone to look to see if they were out there. But yeah, I mean, it's so different from one area to another. If you got a lot of freshwater inflow, you're going to have a lot of little shad. If you have really good, if you got a good rain and some fresh water is getting blown into your bay from wherever, there's going to be a good little shad hatch. Those are, man, it's such a big question, for this entire coast, because I know down south, they keep their bait, year round. Their bait doesn't really thin out all that much in the winter time. So, but you're still going to have the smaller hatches coming off in the spring. And we talk about bait fish hatches. Hell, everything hatches. It's trout, it's reds, it's all kind of little bitty bait fish running around out there. And a lot of them aren't actually what we consider bait fish. They're just, baby fish that we want to grow up, but they're going to get eaten.
Yeah. Down south, he mentioned, Dean. I'm bad about this. Generally, I don't start trying to quote match the hatch until I don't catch fish on what I start throwing. And then I'm like, okay, must be the size of the bait. But what are your thoughts there?
We got billions of little pin perch right now. Even the fish that we've cleaned lately, I mean, they got little 1-inch pin perch in them. Little baby crabs, teeny crabs, tiny shrimp. I mean, and you can subscribe to that theory. I mean, you can do that. But, I mean, I stick with my arsenal that I throw 12 months out of the year. I mean, you don't change much. What changes when it does that is you get more fish where those little things are living. So the grass beds tend to have more speckled trout mixed in with the redfish right now. I mean, we've caught more trout than reds in the last week because the water temperature is still cool. There's a lot of bait fish for them to eat in those areas, and it'll be that way until it gets hot. And then the trout tend to go move and live in deeper stuff. But I mean, a lot of theories in that. You can throw the little mini ball tails. I mean, the 2-inch soft plastics. A lot of people will go that route. But even whenever you're going with the standard, 4-inch ball tail shad or a paddle tail, it's not that much bigger, relatively speaking. But I mean, they're there. There's no doubt. Like the drift socks, man. You pull up the drift socks this week, they're covered in little tiny 1-inch crabs. Shake them off in the boat, and there's just 20 crabs come in every time. So that's got a lot to do with why the fish are in a better mood right now. There's just a lot to eat. Days are getting longer. Those things start to hatch out. Water temperatures consistently warmer, and it is a seasonal change, but the fish they seem to get in a much better mood when that happens.
I just keep going. it's hard to throw stuff that's too small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can definitely throw stuff that's too big. You can see fish turn off of it because it's just it invades their space or something. I don't know. I've seen full grown redfish run from a 5-inch topwater, but very seldom will you ever see them take off and flee from something smaller.
Well, that's what Caleb was saying.
You keep going smaller and smaller on your baits until you figure out what they want to eat.
Yeah. A couple of things that I like about our listeners is they'll listen to the podcast and go back and listen to others, and then they'll have a question that comes off of that. And Caleb, I'm going to start with you here because we've been talking. Well, I'll just read the question. You guys have talked about moving tides and what to do on low tides when the water has been out recently. But what happens on high tides? He said he went out this weekend and he could run everywhere, but he didn't really have a strategy. There was water everywhere. The tide was real high. He was just sort of picking spots blindly. Is there an approach on high tides, like but when they're not dumping out and you're not throwing into the deeper water off of a real shallow area, like when there's water everywhere, like where do you start? What do you do?
If the water's coming in, I'm fishing where it's coming in too. Over a reef into a cove, out of a cut into a back lake. But when the tide gets real high, I'm usually going further back, and a lot of times those fish will travel with that tide, or there's been fish back there the whole time in deeper spots that you couldn't really get to because it was too shallow to get there. So yeah, on the big tides, I scatter out just a little bit more. I can't say that I have. It's a harder thing to figure out in your head than a falling tide or a low tide, because instead of looking for puddles and cuts, now you're looking out on flats and on grass lines. But a lot of the times that tide will come up and flood that grass, and the little bait and everything will get in the grass. And so I'll start searching grass lines and just little back out of the way places like that.
What about like when you're in the open bay, so to speak, trout fishing? And this is something that I did a lot. Excuse me. I did a lot with Pat's dad, Tommy, when the water came up real quick and covered a lot of areas that were, especially oyster reefs that were exposed. That was prime time for us. I mean, that'd be because all that exposed stuff, there's been some things on there, whether it's the oyster shell or, just whatever, bird poop and everything else. And it just kind of mixes up once the water covers it. For me, for trout on the open bay, and you know exactly where I'm talking about that I fish this a lot. It's been dynamic. Do you do that a lot?
Man, I will. I'm more, we've talked about the bird poop attracts the bait fish attract the big fish.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went and messed around with that stuff, but I think that also falls into place with whenever that tide starts coming up, the fish move with it, and they're moving to the grass lines, and they can get back into the lakes now and all that kind of stuff. And I think it matters more whenever you're waiting or trying to fish the edge of the bay. If I'm drifting the middle of the bay, I couldn't care less whether it's high or low, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I right now is a different dynamic than, let's say, the tide getting real high in the middle of the summer. It's been kind of low for a good while, and then it comes up, and that's where you're getting the fish that are transitioning and moving with the seasons and moving out to those places that they're going to live as the water warms up, versus later on where it just comes up. Now let's see what happens. But yeah. I'm just like Dean and I did whenever I went and fished with him. We're going to go start searching those flats where they're coming out of the channels and getting up, and they're getting some sun on them. They're finding some new food to eat. They're finding some smaller food and all that kind of stuff.
So, Dean, this is your dynamic down there is a little different, because a lot of times, especially redfish, well, everything, but it's so skinny, all across there, that all of a sudden when the water comes up, does anything change for you when some of these grassy areas all of a sudden covered?
Well, the thing that changes is where you can go when the tide comes up. We talk about structure, just like you guys talk about the oyster reefs, how the tide comes up, those bait fish gravitate to the oyster reefs because it's where they can hide. They have structure to hide up against. The structure on the flats here is the grass on the bottom. They don't have to gravitate to the shorelines. They don't have to gravitate to the oyster reefs for safety. They just dart straight down into the grass.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the high tide, as the tide flows, it definitely spurs, or whether it goes in or out, it spurs the food chain. I mean, they like current. Even when the wind blows, it creates current, and that kind of gets the food chain going. Yeah. But on the vast flats, every sand hole, every grass bed, which is, endless out here, has potential to have a fish on it, which is why drifting works in our area, which why drifting is, very productive on no matter which tide. You just search for a flat that has the proper depth to get around in. I mean, it's a very different scenario than the marshes with the cuts and the drains and the oysters. And then up there, you have mud flats where there's no structure on the bottom for hundreds of yards. And you find one lonesome oyster reef out there in the middle of that. I mean, it's going to attract some fish.
Yeah. I did my share of searching on those flats. That's for dang sure.
And then, and then you'd swear there's not a fish in that grass some days.
I was doing exactly that. Hey, Scott, before we move on, I wanted to, some of the things that you sent me and have been posted on the group page about the new trout tags and fees and what we should know on that. And I know you wanted to clear this up. You kind of did on the group page, but for our listeners that are, out of state or whatever, and want to come down here, what's the gist of your point here?
Okay. And we got the regulations changed, and that's coming March 26th is when it goes into effect. Mm-hmm. The 3 fish, 15 to 20. Initially, they were going to do a 25-inch, one per day, over 25. During the commission meeting, got talking about it and came up with a 30-inch, one per day that went along with this new regulation that starts March 26th. Also, while we were talking about that, I said, well, why don't we do a tag just like with the redfish, mm-hmm. and help protect those big fish even more. So that came in as a proposal. Couldn't go through with the other regulations because it hadn't been through the public hearings and the proposals, all that situation. So now they've officially made it a proposal, and they're taking comments on it. There's a link on our Facebook page, and you can go on there, and basically you can read through the regulation, then you say whether you agree or disagree, and if you disagree,
I did, by the
why.
way, the link you sent me, yeah,
and it's real simple. I mean, it's 2 clicks, and you can support it or you can go against it. I mean, I've seen a couple people say they went against it. I honestly cannot figure out why you would be against protecting 30-inch fish, but that's, I don't know. But the reason that it was set up that way with a 30-inch fish was so that there could be the possibility of catching a state record or water body record or anything along those lines that it would still be out there. Back when we did the redfish years and years ago, when redfish were in real trouble and they were trying to bring them back, they put a moratorium on any fish over 30 inches. You couldn't keep one, period. I caught the state record during that time. I couldn't do anything with it except turn it loose. It was a 5-foot long redfish. I mean, it was 58 inches.
And it was a real long and accurate cast.
Yeah, it actually was. saw a swirl and cast to it on the beachfront, and that's what I got. But that way,
I believe all of that. I believe all of that.
There's still a possibility that you can have a record. And everybody said, well, the record's 36 inches. Well, not every record is. There's records for fly fishing. There's records in different water bodies and all that stuff. So. But then the biggest confusion that people keep coming up with is why do we have to pay for the tag?
I just love that. That's what I wanted to tag.
It's an extra tax on us. It's that. It's the same thing as the redfish tag. Exactly. Yeah. If you use your tag and you want another tag, then you pay a $3 fee. That's an administrative cost so that they can send you another damn tag. I don't know why you would want to have a second tag, but whatever. I mean, if you got to have it, just pony up that $3, man. Yeah.
$3.
Yeah.
If you bring home,
if that's your sticking point, I can't. I got no.
If that's the deal breaker. That's the deal
I
breaker.
That's the deal breaker. That's why I'm selling my boat, is because I have to buy a $3 tag. And I'm done with fishing. Okay,
Caleb, you just don't get it, Caleb. When I catch
John,
my second,
I got to go straight into it, John. I'm sorry, I got to go straight into this. If you are bringing home so many 30-inch redfish or 30-inch trout and having to replace these tags, okay, hang with me here. If you are bringing home this many redfish that you're going broke over the $3, I keep saying redfish, trout. If you're bringing, I can't fathom this damn idea. If you're bringing home so many 30-inch trout that you're going broke over buying $3 tags, but you're bringing home to mount your trophies that are costing you $500 to $1,500 a trophy mount. Where in the hell exactly in Facebook land have we been living?
Yeah, I've seen so many people mad about that. Now, this $3 tag, I'm gonna have to buy a $3 tag. No, you're not. You don't have to. You got one that's gonna come with your license. It's there.
Yeah.
If you decide to use it.
My answer would be, bet you don't.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my other point, was how many of these 30-inch tags do you actually think is going to get used?
I'm going to use about 5, Dean. Yeah, I'm in for $15. I'm in
I can tell you that on the redfish side, I think Dak has told me there was somewhere just over 1,000 redfish tags used in a year.
Mm-hmm. And
think of how many more 30-inch plus redfish there are out there. There's a lot of them. There's a whole lot versus trout. And so
the redfish
you're just not going
to. The redfish tags, they get used with the people that I fish with, are usually, if they're keeping a fish to eat, if they're keeping something that day, if they get a redfish that's 29 or 28 and a half or a little bit over, that is still good to eat. Because if you get a redfish that's 34, 35 inches and up, it is not good to eat. Mm-hmm. I don't care when it's edible. Of course it's edible, but it's not going to be what you want. When you cut it open, you will see the difference of the meat inside of it, what it looks like. So a redfish, if they want to keep one that's a little bit over, that is still good to eat, and it's like, didn't catch too many fish that day, they get one in that range, it's like, tag that, eat that fish if you really want some fillets. But the trophy, if you want one in the trophy range, take a picture of it, get a replica. It's not good to eat anyway. I mean, I've seen it all the time, man. Especially it happens at the jetties during the bull run. They're bringing in those reds. They have a tag. They keep a fish 35, 36 inches. And when you cut it open, it's not firm. It's not it's not what you want to eat. So, but the tags usually go on something that's barely over 28 to make it legal. Put it in the cooler if you want to eat that fish.
I'll tell you what, you tell me I'm going to catch 5 trout over 30 inches. I'll put 2 zeros on the end of that $15.
Yeah.
I'll pay whatever you want.
I think whoever's worried about this $3 is the same person that designed our tax code. Like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, one other thing on it too that we talked about while we were at that meeting, and I think I mentioned it on here before, was doing something like the Share a Lunker program that they have with bass fishing. In bass, you get one over 13 pounds. You call Parks and Wildlife, they come out and get it, take it to a hatchery. Not going to do that, but they also have a way. I think Toyota sponsors it, and they do a replica mount for you when you release that fish.
Oh, so that's cool.
We were talking about it and seeing, just kind of the beginnings of this. It's not happening right away, but we're trying to think of a way to get a sponsorship where, say, the first 10 trout that are verified over 30 inches that are released, then those people can have a free mount.
Now that's a great idea.
And I mean, it's going to be about, funding for it and all that. We had to get some sponsorship in it, but I think it's a possibility. I think it's something that really could happen, and that'd be pretty cool. You know, for whatever funding we have for that year, that's how many trout. You know, say it's a slow year, we can only do 5.
Yeah,
I'd seriously doubt we'll ever get that many.
That's a great idea, though. How about AG? And I've been there, AG. If the limit was 1 trout, I'd still be struggling to get a limit.
Hey, those
been
days
there.
come and go, man.
I've been there.
We've all seen
No
it
doubt
happen.
about. Oh Lord! All right, so I got a boat ramp confessional. There's some other topics here that maybe we'll hold over, but I got a boat ramp confessional that's kind of local. So Jason Law from Wade Wright, over coastalfishinggear.com. I was actually fishing with Dean on Saturday. He goes, "Hey man, give me a call. I got a boat ramp confessional." And I just don't know how this happened. That's why I really wanted to bring it up. By the way, if you're new to the podcast, every so often, we try to do it as often as we can, but a lot of people are kind of embarrassed to share their boat ramp confessionals. And what I always say is, we've all done stupid stuff. We've all done stupid things at the ramp, on the water, with our fishing gear, whatever it may be. So don't be bashful. I don't mention names unless you want me to. So this buddy of Jason, unless you're Andrew, this buddy of Jason's went fishing and was backing in his boat, and he has a rope. He's one of those guys. This is what kind of gave tipped his memory there. So he has a rope, and he actually holds it out the truck window. Hits the brakes, boat rolls off. He opens the door, gets the rope, and gets it going like that. Well, y'all know what's coming. So he decided this time to open the door and hold the rope so he could just pop out, after he lets the boat out. So he had the door open.
Starts backing like down. A Caleb bad idea.
That's just too many moving.
It all makes sense to me at this point.
So he starts backing down the ramp with his the door open, and he's holding this rope on the bow of his boat. Somehow he kind of slams the brake, slips somehow, and I don't know if the rope slipped out of his hand or somehow he kind of lost his bearings a little bit, and the door hit a bulkhead next to the side of the ramp. And before he could even turn around, I know what he said. He said he had his 5-year-old son with him, and his son was talking to him, and so he was kind of distracted. And so and so all of a sudden he's backing up. The front of the door hits the bulkhead by the ramp, and just completely, before he could hit the brakes, completely swings open all the way, cracks open to the point that he said the door handle indentation was on the front left quarter panel.
Jesus.
Damn.
You ever heard of a break?
That's just, that's why.
No, that was the gas.
It's too much going on.
I think Caleb was right. Too many moving parts, man. Yeah. Or whoever said that. Too many moving parts.
But that's why you tie that rope onto the front of the trailer. You can pre-designate the length of your rope and put a loop on the winch, and you get a much more controlled catastrophe.
Yeah, but you might get your toes wet that way.
You could.
I see where he's going with this. I see where he's and
Caleb's like,
I'm not saying it was executed in the best way, but
what I was picturing,
one who could make sense of this.
Yeah. What I was picturing the whole time was he ran over the rope.
Now, I was seeing him hit the brakes, and the boat jerked his ass out of the driver's seat, and then the truck reversed going down in there.
That's huge potential for much disaster in that scenario.
Okay, Caleb, I want you to work on this and think about it over this week, and then the first time you try it, I want some video, or I just want to be
open
there.
The door.
I want to be there and watch and see how it works out for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tie the rope.
Better yet,
I already got
tie the rope around your waist. That'll be safer.
No. I'm gonna tie the rope to Steve, And as much as Steve hates the water, that damn boat ain't floating away because Steve ain't gonna get his feet wet.
He's gonna hold the boat.
He's gonna hold it.
I could see the wheels turning, Caleb. You're like, you know what? If I open the door, it might be a little more efficient.
Yeah. No, I mean, this all makes sense. Just, how tall are the running boards? That would be the deciding factor for me.
So I was picturing the drive home because there's no way that door closed. Like
he used the same rope to tie the door closed to get home.
I'm picturing the commercial with the we cover a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. What is that? The farmers commercial.
Man!
I wonder, does his insurance fix that door?
It's got to, right? Yeah,
oh yeah,
got to.
They probably pay him half of what it's worth, but they're gonna do something for it.
And that's thousands of dollars. That ain't an easy fix.
Oh no,
yeah.
You got the front fender too.
Yeah, and he got the front fender. Yeah, he said there was an indentation of the handle on the front quarter panel.
Can you imagine being the guy standing there watching this happen?
Yes. I kept thinking, like, on the way home, I wonder how tight that seatbelt was because the door's wide open. Like,
so what do we know what
ramp, those right turns?
Do we know what ramp he was at?
He told me. He told me, and I can't remember.
I wonder if it was one with a camera on it.
This would be good.
We've all done it. You sit there and there's somebody that's, screwing around on the ramp and you realize they don't really have it together. You kind of look over there out of curiosity and watch the train wreck. I bet there was somebody watching that. Somebody had to. Somebody saw that coming and went, I don't think I'd do that.
Where's my phone?
No. And everybody's got a camera. They're ready, man.
More than once, I've been parked in line in Matagorda. I always park like right by the boat ramp while I wait on my customers, and they pull up and throw their stuff in my boat. Then I launch my boat. And so I'm sitting there every time. And I've had customers walk up and start talking. I'm like, no, hold on. I need a minute. And I'm just sitting here watching something happen to the ramp. Like, after this guy gets his boat off the trailer, then we can talk and greet each other. But y'all should probably watch this too.
You want to see this.
Con Brown Harbor right here at Ranzas Pass, busiest boat ramp in Texas, has a live webcam. You can watch it from the comfort of your home.
Perfect.
I'm telling you. And Perry just read my mind. I'd just like to be the little 5-year-old kid.
Yeah, he's never going to launch a boat in his life.
Did the guy figure out how to blame his wife anyway?
Oh yeah, I'm sure he did.
The 5-year-old, that 5-year-old sitting in the back seat going, "Hey, Daddy, you know what?
Mama says
I got a door.
Well, see, she made the
still
kid
got my door."
He's gonna blame his wife because she made the kid go fishing with him.
Yeah, probably. There you go. That's it. Oh man, we got time. We can go a little long here. This has been a fun show. On a more serious note, this is also one that they kind of quoted back to us.
Humbug.
Yeah, I know. On a more serious note, this is one that they quoted back to us, a listener. I don't have the question, but Dane, I'm going to start with you. You've been in the game a long time.
On a serious note.
On a serious note, well, you don't have to be serious, but on a serious note, because we were talking about all the limits and how it ties in and fishing captains and everything that's happened. Very simple question I got: are captains' licenses worth it? And this was an offshoot of that question, which you may also want to answer. That was on the Bite Me group page of should you take the test online or in person. So maybe hit both of those. But with all the challenges facing new upcoming wannabe captains, the question is: are captains' licenses worth it?
Why would you call them wannabes? Like, are you disparaging the?
No, as in they want to become official captains.
I heard wannabe captains.
Like I said, nobody's going to stop fishing because the limits changed. There will not be less people fishing because it went from 5 trout to 3 to what it is. That it's just not. There's going to be just as many people out there fishing. They're going to catch whatever the limit is. And to all the upcoming guides, don't do it. Don't do it. There's enough. There's enough out there already.
I thought you were going to go the exact opposite direction.
Stay in school and become a sportscaster, write a book, and choose a different choose a different career path. I mean, if you want to, when I was a new fishing guide starting out, and I heard about some new guides coming on the scene, I was like, man, it's going to cut into my business. It's going to create competition. Nowadays, when I hear about the new guys, I pat them on the back. I wish them all the luck in the world because I know the challenges they're up against. And it's not easy, and good luck to you. It's relatively expensive, you know, to go to the school and take the course. And I mean, you're going to make a pretty good investment. You're going to buy a boat, and to make all that money back and make a living out of it, it ain't easy. So, you know, good luck, and it can be worth it, but you got to really, really want it.
You're not going to get wealthy. It's not going to happen.
There ain't no rich fishing guides out there.
People think that we overcharge, we make a ton of money. They don't see the 2 weeks that we have to take off because the weather is bad or something flooded. They don't see the week we have to take off because of a blown power head, all that kind of stuff. You're not going to make a bunch of money. The new and the romance is going to wear off of it. You're going to get where fishing is just a job. When you have fun is whenever you have a select group of customers that just fit your wavelength. They're a good time, and you get to fish when you fish with your buddies. But when you have a day off, you really don't want to go fish with your buddies. It gets to the point where I was driving. I went to K Wigglers this morning, picked up stuff. I'm driving back, and man, I was thinking about something totally different. Adam Weller calls me and he says, "Hey, you on your way to Rockport?" And I was like, "Wait, huh, what?" He said, "You're fishing Rockport this week," and it kind of like, and I'm not saying this in a rude way, it kind of like put a damper on. I'm like, damn it, I got to fish on Friday. Where back in the day, it was like, dude, I get to fish. I'm off this week. I get to fish 5 days straight. This is awesome. The way I explain it is, you don't realize what you've trapped yourself in until you actually become successful at this. When you look up and you don't have a weekend for the next 5 months, and your wife and your kids are saying, "Hey, we're going to do this," and you say, "Yeah, well, y'all have fun. I can't." You know, I haven't seen a Labor Day or a 4th of July in 6 years. Now,
that's another thing I tell people. Friday and Saturday night, man, everybody's ready to throw down, man. Let's go to the bar. Let's get it on. It's like, sorry, can't. On Monday night, man, I'm ready to crack. Or Sunday night, I got Monday, Tuesday off. I'm ready to drink a bottle of tequila. You know what everybody's looking at me doing? They're like, I got to go to bed, man. I got to work tomorrow. So you live on a different cycle than the rest of the world as well. But if you really want it, you gotta want it, and then you go for it. There's sacrifices. What it is there's a lot of misconceptions in guiding. Appearances from the outside aren't really, you know, and of course, I'm sure, you know, everybody wants to be John Lopez. Everybody wants to be the sportsman. And there's probably two sides to that story that everybody doesn't see. Drinking and partying at the press club is probably not as much fun as we think it is.
It's work. I'm telling you, it's work.
I would think that realistically, 1 out of 50 guides would make it past 5 years. I think that's a good number.
Many have failed. Of course, I've watched more attempt it and not make it than attempt it and make it. But you better have two salaries coming into the house. You're not going to do it on your own. There's seasonal times you have to store your nuts for the winter because you're going to be eating beans in January. If you didn't put something in the bank in July.
There's a lot of success stories out there. You know, Wyatt Foster was a young kid that I knew through tournaments and stuff, and he's guiding, he's killing it. There's guys that do it. I'm not saying it won't work. I'm just saying it's not what you think it is. Now let's move on to the next topic. Online or in class, you have lost your freaking mind if you think you're going to take this class online. This class has nothing to do with fishing. It has nothing to do with driving a fishing boat. It has nothing to do with boat ramps or cleaning fish. They are teaching you inland and international law. And this is some of the hardest crap I've ever been through in my life. And if I didn't have a teacher up there that was handing me cheat sheets and you know, telling us, remember this part, just saying, remember this part. I know several people that have done the thing where they do it online. They go up, I think it's like they went to like Bass Pro Shop or something to take the test. and just absolutely bombed it. So if you want it, go to a class, because this is you. I promise there's nothing on it. The only thing is the red light goes one way, the green light goes away. The rest of it, I mean, you have to learn what it looks like if a barge is pulling a freaking
red, right,
landmine.
returning.
Yeah, and then every question they ask, there's two answers. One of them counts here, and one of them counts international, and they're different damn answers. No, don't do it online whatsoever.
And then you got to learn those red squares and the black squares and the black triangle. But all that being said, I can plot a course across Chesapeake Bay with a 20-mile-an-hour cross current and a 40-mile-an-hour wind.
When we flew up,
that's the question, right? That's what for those who don't know, that's one of the questions.
Yes.
So, no, Chesapeake Bay, they use that bay for all of the charting stuff. All your stuff in Chesapeake. Dean, when we flew up to Pennsylvania, or Baltimore, we flew to Maryland to go to Little League World Series. We flew over Chesapeake, and I looked out the window at the airplane. I said, I would make you my bitch.
All right, so we haven't heard from Scott yet. I want to say something real quick on this. There's if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can find it. I did a video with Scott that he was really good about just kind of the life of a guide, and it kind of alludes to some of the things that Dean and Caleb were just talking about. So I'd highly recommend you go and watch that video, because it was really good from Scott, and you actually saw some man thigh during the course of that video, which was a little bit disturbing, but the content was good. But Scott, you've been kind of watching there, listening to Dean and Caleb, kind of with a grin on your face. I know you got something to add here.
Dean talks about having that little pile of nuts for the winter time. Have that pile of nuts before you get started in this. I mean, you're going to go, the beginning of it's going to be scratching, and you're going to end up fishing in ways that you don't want to fish. That's what Caleb was doing when I met him. He was chunking croakers. He was, taking bait trips,
shrimp,
whatever, still bait.
Okay.
And, doing trips that he really didn't enjoy. But you got to earn a paycheck. So if you think that you're just going to go out there and you're going to hang your shingle out and guys are going to show up and want to go trophy trout fishing with you, and you don't have a name already from fishing tournaments or Instagram, whatever. Yeah. Instagram has created more damn guides than any other thing that we've ever run across. We even have a name for them, Insta guides. But, if you get into it, try to learn a specialty, and work towards that. In the beginning of it, you're going to scratch, you're going to claw, but work towards having that group of fishermen that come and fish with you that are fun.
Scott,
the guys that get you, the guys that get what you do. I mean, I very seldom have anybody ever call me now that just wants to go bait fishing. I don't get those kind of calls. I get referral calls, and they all know what I do. They know that I'm going to go fly fishing. We're going to pole shallow and throw conventional gear and sight cast from a poling skiff, or we're going to go out on the beachfront and play with the tarpon and the big fish. I don't get a whole lot of the touristy kind of, hey, we're just coming down. We just want to catch a bunch of fish. We just want to bring home a whole bunch of fish back to Dallas. Those people don't call me, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
That is, and Scott, whenever you've been because you're going to get those guys the first 5 years, but Scott, you've been a successful guide a long dang time. Everybody on the Texas coast knows who you are. You have no problem booking trips, but let me ask you this: how good did those fishing guide benefits kick in whenever you slip and rip the shoulder off your body for 6 months?
Yeah, thank God I had the police department. I mean, I'll make no bones about it. I've got a pension and I've got insurance through the city of Houston. And if it hadn't been for those two things, when I was out for 18 months from tearing my shoulder off, it would have been pretty tough around here. And yeah, Camille works and she makes good money, but it's a 2-income deal. And there was a long period there. And thank God for a handful of really good customers that kept me going. Jeremy Compton being top of the list on that. He had a bunch of trips booked with me, and he just said, all right, I'll just come by your house and I'm going to pick your brain. That's what I was going to do on the boat anyway. And so he just came by the house and we ran trips on my porch.
Hey,
and that's the thing that you don't see on social media. A lot of these guides that are out there, and you see them a lot. Most of them either come from or they're married to an income. It like Dean said, it's just almost impossible to pull it off by yourself. There's a couple of guys that do it. They have sold their entire life to do it though. They're fishing every single day, no matter what, and they're in areas where they can fish. They're not in areas that weather can absolutely shut you down. They're in areas where they can get wind blocks and all that. Yeah. Let me ask you a question, John. How and genuine answer, not radio show, John. How pumped up do you get whenever they say, "Hey, John, we need you at the Texans game on Sunday"?
It depends, to be honest. A lot of times, I look. I'm not gonna lie. I've had an incredible career, and I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about just the experiences and the things I've been able to do and all that stuff. But you know what? Just like everybody else, and nobody wants, and I never talk about it because nobody wants to hear, oh, you can't go to a Texans game. Oh, you really don't want to spend a week at the Super Bowl? Which, like, I'll give you an answer. Every year we go to the Super Bowl. I haven't been to the actual game in about the last 10 trips that I've been to the Super Bowl because it's a hassle and nobody wants to hear that. But like traffic and airport Monday morning, and I've been to several Super Bowls, so I've experienced it and I've got it. I go do the Radio Road thing, and then I'm out of there Friday night. I did that this year, and you know where I was Saturday? I was fishing. I was fishing on Saturday, and I watched the game in my little old trailer in Aransas Pass. Because like everything is like revolves around your life, and you have to sacrifice your life for a lot of these things. So yes, I can relate to exactly what you're talking about.
So last thing I got to say about it, John said it that this takes people skills, dude. That neighbor you have that you would never in your life invite to go fishing because he does that thing you hate.
He's gonna book you.
There should be him and a bunch like him, and you have to be convincing that I'm having a great time with you and everything. It takes a different sort of personality, and you can't. God dang it, I'm a member of some sort of fishing guide group on Facebook, and they'll go on Facebook and just bash their customers no end, like tell stories about them. You can't be that guy either. You can't be that guy either.
No.
What
are you doing?
Yeah.
All right.
Imagine like that guy like Parkoff that you like to drink beer with. Imagine him fishing with you. Oh my God.
You would have nothing to do with him.
You won't hardly ever see a successful fishing guide that doesn't have a decent personality. And 100%. There's a couple of them out there that get by purely on their skills because I've been around them and they're not all that much fun to be around. But yeah, I mean, you're going to have slow days. It's going to happen. And you damn well better have some stories and be entertaining because that is a long ass day when it is slow and nothing's happening and you can feel it and it just the cows are laying down and things are just not happening. And you better pull some stories out your rear end real quick and know, one of the things I did early on, I just got some history books and started reading a bunch of the history of Galveston. And now I do it from Matagorda and just know the history of the area. And
I tell stories about John and Scott and Caleb.
Yeah. No, here's the thing. I might not be a good guide, but I got stories for days, man. I've got 38 years worth of sports and traveling the world. And
whenever I got started in guiding, I did like Scott, and I took the history books and I tried to read them, but they were so much thicker than when Scott started. I never finished them.
He was reading a pamphlet, a history pamphlet.
It was a flyer.
It's easier to remember when you live it.
I can see him be like, "Hey, Camille, look at this thing. They call it a printing press. This is amazing."
He pulled his history flyer off of the Winds, the Dollar General.
John's got all these years of sports stories and stuff. I worked homicide for 13.
That too. That'll do it.
I got some stories for that.
That's right. All right, boys. Man, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we added that last topic there. What would Scott do? What would Kaylee do? What would Dean do? Well, we're going fishing. I'm taking Friday off. We're going fishing Friday together, kind of. We'll be in 2 boats, but I'm sure we'll have some fun there. What about our lovely listeners? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, into the weekend. Dean, I know you've been looking at it. Friday actually looks pretty dang good for us, but what about the other days, and what would you do?
Man, it's just going to be one of them weeks. And so right at the beginning of this, Scott was talking about, he said the rain has moved on. The forecast for the next tomorrow night has like a big chance of rain again. I don't know if the front's backing up or what's going on, but you're going to deal with a variety of weather. We've had wind changing, man. It's freezing cold out there again, man. It's like 50 degrees and the wind is blowing. But the cool thing that we got going on is the tide is up high. You have a lot of options. So, you can set up nice long drifts, and I'm not confined to the deeper sand holes that I've been fishing for 2 months. I have a lot more options. So no matter the wind or the temperature, I mean, we're back to throwing top waters and avoiding the thunderstorms this week.
Caleb?
Yeah, what Dean said, I'd start exploring grass lines, and if I can get a falling tide, get out in front of cuts and drains and throw little flashy things and see what I could get tangled up there. I spent all week last week knee deep throwing top waters, and man, it was a ferocious bite. It's a fun time of year for top waters for sure. I'm hoping Dean has a good plan for Friday, because I really don't feel like being let down.
What if you get on my boat?
Yeah, if I get on your boat, I know a good place to Flower Bluff get tacos.
Are we gonna draw straws for how we match this little soiree up?
I'm just hoping I show up.
You're not the only one. Scott, go ahead. What are you going to do this week?
Well, I didn't get to talk on the high tide thing, but with the tides going up that high, like much higher than they've been, I'm going into the backwaters. I'm going exploring. The redfish are going to follow that tide. They're going to get as far back in there as they can go in these areas that I like to fish with the backwaters. I don't fish the open grass flats like Dean does all that much. We just don't have a whole lot of that around here. And we've got ribbons of grass along the shorelines, and they'll work on that when the tide's down. But as soon as it goes up, man, these fish they'll scatter and disappear back into the trees. So that's probably where I'll start looking, is further and further back as far as I can push that little boat. One other thing before we get out, Danny Wentz, he's one of the sales reps. Really good dude. One of the best guys in the fishing business. About 6 months ago, he was in ICU and bad shape. And I talked to him at the fishing show. He told me the story. It was horrific, all the stuff he went through. Well, I'll be damned, he's got it again, and he's back in ICU, and he's got pneumonia in his left lungs tore up with that, and he's got some fibroid tumors that have gone up in there, and he's got chest tube and draining some fluids around his lungs and all this. It's a mess. And there's a GoFundMe. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the Bite Me page.
Yeah.
Like I said, Danny's one of the best guys in the business. I mean, he's a super, super nice guy and works with Pure Fishing Stuff, which everybody out there has thrown something that Danny sells. If you throw gulp, Danny sells it.
Yeah.
And you've seen him at the fishing shows. He's just the big friendly guy, always talking to everybody, never too good to stop and say something to everybody around him. Just wishing him well.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and everybody listening can go to the Bite Me group page and contribute to the GoFundMe there. All right, boys, the really, really fun show. We are going to have cameras. Caleb, are you going to have a cameraman with you, or are you going to have your own camera?
I certainly can have a cameraman.
Well, it's up to you. I just wanted to see. What I'm getting at is we're definitely going to have some videos of this weekend.
Yeah, so, I'll see if I can bring part of my camera crew. If not, we'll get a Insta360 put on the boat or something.
Yeah, and Dean's got his. I got mine. I'm sure Scott's got some too, but we'll get that done. So looking forward to the week. By the way, I was just texting with Roy Crush from Texas Boys Outdoors. We are looking in the next couple of weeks to start planning the next Bite Me feeding frenzy. Looking for maybe the second week of September if it works out schedule wise for everybody. I know it's a busy time, but it'll be a little cooler. In the meantime, you guys, thanks for hanging in there. We went a little long today, but that's it was all good, and those are some good topics. So we'll give you the update from there. I'll see you guys on Friday morning, if not Thursday night. And until then, everybody catch them up, and we will talk to you next time.